and thank you for joining me today for Real Estate, Religion, and You. My name is Sylvia Black, licensed real estate broker with affordable homes and apartments. And I'm also licensed to preach and ordained as a minister, and I have my master's degree in sacred theological divinity. And I want to thank you for joining me today for Real Estate, Religion, and You, which airs every Wednesday from 6:30 to 7 p.m. right here on Time Warner Public Access TV Channel 20, and also Saturdays from 12:30 to 1. Today I would like to talk to you about a book I've written called The Story of Joseph, From the Pit to the Palace. And I would subtitle the message today will be The Blessings of Obedience. Joseph, From the Pit to the Palace, which is available on highwaytoheavenchurch.org, also lulu.com, also amazon.com, and also barnesandnobles.com. Okay, you can visit my YouTube address at sblack3001 at gmail.com. Well, actually, sblack3001 for my email. And for my YouTube address at sblack3001. And you can email me at sblack3001 at gmail.com. And again, we're talking about the blessings of obedience. And we're taking out a story from Joseph. And this book is called Joseph, From the Pit to the Palace. Now, I do believe that a lot of times, in order for us to determine a lot of our problems that we're facing, a lot of the issues that we're dealing with, it's important sometimes for us to go back just a bit. Not necessarily back, all the way to your great-grandparents. Maybe sometimes look at maybe your parents' life, but also to look back maybe a couple of years ago in your own life. Or maybe just as soon as perhaps even a month or a week ago, or even yesterday or that morning. And today is the first Sunday of the month of July. And I want to thank you for joining me today. Now, like I said, a lot of times I think that it is important that we go back a little bit in order to determine a lot of things in our lives. And as I had previously talked to you, and we're going to start off with a prayer actually that's going to be from my book, You Can't Curse What God Has Blessed, which is also available on highwaytoheavenchurch.org. And I talk about generational curses and generational blessings. Now, I mentioned that a lot of times that when a child has to struggle with sin, it's because the parents sinned. And they passed on that curse down to the child. Now, I have to yet suffer with my own sin. I'm not going to pay for the price of my parents' sins, because they have to pay the price for their own sin, and I thank God for that, But the parents have to pay the price for their own sins. They have to deal with their own sins. They'll be punished according to their sins, or they'll be forgiven for their sins, whichever God determines to be necessary. Now me, I'll have to suffer with sin as a child of a sinner, but it's up to me to get it right. I have to deal with sin, and I have to struggle with sin. So now I have to make a choice whether I'm going to serve God or man. Okay, whether I'm going to cling to God and hate man or what have you. You can't serve two masters. You got to serve one or the other. So now it's going to be up to me. God gives us a choice. That's why Jesus died on the cross for us, so that we can have a choice as to who we're going to serve. So in this book, I go back to as far as Joseph's fathers when they were born, just to show you a little bit about what, to actually back up what I'm talking about. Okay, that's the bottom line of that. Now the book starts off, okay, and the story is found in the book of Genesis in the Bible. Okay, it starts off with the births of Esau and Jacob. Okay, and it doesn't necessarily go into detail about it, just enough to let you know. Okay, and as we know, Esau and Jacob were the sons of Abraham. Okay, now Abraham had found favor in God afterwards. Okay, he had got redemption after retribution. And God had told him and made promises to Abraham and told him that your descendants were going to be as numerous as the stars. So in essence, we are all descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Okay, and so Isaac and Jacob was born. Okay, Esau sells his birthright. Okay, Jacob sent for a bowl of soup. Esau was out hunting, and Jacob told him, you want some soup, you got to sell me your birthright. Now, birthright is something that you're entitled to as a result of being born. Okay, now Esau sells his birthright for a bowl of soup, and the man can make a bowl of soup just as good as his brother can. Okay, then Isaac deceives Abimelech. Okay, Okay, then like I said, this you can find the story in here in my book, Joseph from the Pit to the Palace, available on highwaytoheavenchurch.org or lulu.com. Okay, Isaac's covenant with Abimelech. Okay, now Jacob steals Esau's blessing. Okay, based on his mother Rebecca's instructions. Now you got to remember, your mama or your daddy may tell you to do something wrong, but you have your own mind whether you want to do it or not. If they tell you to do something wrong, you have a right to say no. Okay, yeah, you're gonna suffer for it probably, but you're gonna have to know that God is pleased with you for your decision, because now you're suffering as a slave to righteousness and not as a slave to sin. If a man asks you to do something wrong, if your mama, your daddy, your sister, your brother, your uncle, your aunt, your cousin, your niece, your nephew tell you, let's go rob a bank, and you go along with them, you've made the decision to rob the bank, okay? So now you are out of covenant with God, and you're suffering as a slave to sin. If you decide to say, no, I'm not going to go rob the bank, and they still punish you anyway, because you did not rob the bank, okay, now you're suffering as a slave to righteousness, and God is pleased with you. You know the passage in the Bible in the 1 Peter, I believe it is, it says, don't be afraid as if something strange were happening to you, okay? Okay, well, do as your masters tell you to do. Give them the respect that God instructs you to give them, not necessarily that they deserve, because we know that they are probably not deserving of any of that, but God instructs us to be obedient to His word. And that's the title, The Blessings of Obedience here. God instructs us to be obedient to His word, and as a result of us being obedient to His word, God is pleased with us. And what does it mean when God is pleased with us? What does it mean when you are pleased with what your children do? Your children sweep up the house or they rake the yard like they're supposed to without you having to tell them. Oh, I'm so happy you did that. The average parent, me, I'll take you out to the movies. I'll treat you. Today is your day. Anything you want to do today, we can do it, And that's the way I reward my children. But a lot of people, and that's the way God, but see, God owns the whole world, so He can bless us with anything, our heart's desire. Okay? He can bless us with an abundance of riches and wealth. Okay? He can give us good success. He can give us extra years like He did with, who's the character? He gave him 15 more years. Okay? Now, Jacob flees to Paddan because his brother Esau said he's going to kill him. You stole my birthright, bro. You know what I mean? And now I'm going to come after you. I'm going to get rid of you now because you did me wrong. Okay, so now Jacob has a dream, okay, at Bethel. The next morning Jacob got up very early. He took the stone that he had rested on his head against and set it upright as a memorial pillow. Then he poured olive oil all over it. Okay? He had a dream, and if you want to find out the details of that dream, get a copy of this book here. Now Jacob finally arrives at Paddan. Okay? Then Jacob hurried on, finally arriving in the land cast in the east. He saw a well in the distance, 3 flocks of sheep, and a goat laying on an open field beside it, waiting to be watered, but a heavy stone covering the mouth of the well. Okay, it was a custom here to wait for all the flocks to arrive before removing the stone and watering the animals. Afterward, the stone would be placed back over the mouth of the well. Jacob went over to the shepherds and asked, "Where are you from, my friends?" "And we are from Haran," they asked. "Do you know a man named Laban, a grandson of Nahor?" he says. "Yes, we do," they replied. "Is he doing well?" Jacob asked. "Yes, he's well," they answered. "Look, here comes his daughter Rachel with the flock now." Okay, now Jacob marries Leah and Rachel because we all know that Jacob wanted Rachel, but Leah was snuck in there by, his uncle was just as conniving as his mother. Because they're brothers and sisters, so they got the same blood in them, okay? Now Jacob didn't have to follow his mother's advice, but he did. Now Jacob's many children. Jacob has children. He has, when the Lord saw that Leah was unloved, He enabled her to have children, but Rachel could not conceive. So Leah became pregnant and gave birth to a son. She named him Reuben, for she said, "The Lord has noticed my misery, and now my husband will love me." All the children that she had, she thought that her husband would love her, but I guess she didn't realize that she was a trick. Okay, and then finally, Rachel was still barren. So Rachel gave her servant Bilhah to Jacob as his wife, and he slept with her. So now she's having all these children by his other wife. Now his servants are having children. And then finally, after by and by, Jacob's wealth increases, and then Rachel has 2 children. Okay, that's Joseph and Benjamin. Now Joseph and Benjamin are Jacob's and Rachel's biological children. Okay, the other children were considered stepbrothers, okay, to him because they were not born of Rachel. Okay, now Jacob flees from Laban because now I guess he must be sick of his mess, and he said, I'm getting out of here. You know, I come here for what I got. You tricked me, now it's time for me to go. So they made, Laban pursues Jacob, but then they make a covenant with one another. And Laban is satisfied with that, so he lets him go. Okay, they make a treaty with one another. Okay, now Esau's coming on the scene, because remember Esau's last words was that I'm going to kill my brother for what he did to me. He stole my birthright and my blessing, and I'm going to get it. So now here comes Esau, and Jacob is afraid that he's coming back to fulfill what his promise. So he sends gifts to Esau, but that's not why Esau had come. Esau, I guess, realized that it was his mother that influenced him. And he said, you know what, I'm still blessed. You know, you can't curse me because of what the words that came out your mouth, because you have no authority to curse me, because if you could curse me, then you could bless yourself. So Esau probably came to the conclusion that says, hey, you can't curse me because I still have children, and I'm still blessed, and I'm still making money, and I'm still in the will of God. Now here Jacob wrestles with God. Okay, during the night Jacob got up and took his 2 wives and his 2 servants' wives and his 11 sons and crossed the Jacob River. And after taking them to the other side, he sent over all his possessions. This left Jacob all alone in the camp, and a man came and wrestled with him until the dawn began to break. When the man saw that he would not win the match, he touched Jacob's hip and wrenched it in his socket. Then the man said, let me go, for the dawn is breaking. But Jacob, I will not let you go unless you bless me. Okay? So now Jacob had a dream. He said, what is your name? He said, he replied, Jacob. Okay, his name was no longer Jacob. Now the man named him Israel. Okay, please tell me your name, Jacob said. But why do you want to know my name? Jacob replaced Peniel. It was the force of God, he said. Though I have seen God's face, yet my life has been spared. Now Jacob and Esau make peace. Okay, finally. And I talk about Jacob and Esau even though the story is about Joseph. Because the subtitle of this message is the blessings of obedience. Because if you look back at Jacob and Esau's life, if you look back at his father's life and his father-in-law and his uncle and his grandmother, you know, then you will find out, you know, why all this mess was happening to him. Now Joseph didn't do anything wrong. Joseph was a slave to righteousness, but his brothers were stepbrothers, had the maid's blood in them, had the stepmother's blood in them. Okay, Rachel, although we all know that Rachel wasn't right either. Rachel was, Jacob was his father, was Joseph's father. And Jacob was obedient to God. Even though he did things wrong in his life, he still had to pay for the price of his sins. Now Joseph is born, his biological son, and he loves the boy more than anything. We know that God tested him and whatnot. He says, you got to kill the boy. And he decided he was going to kill him, but then God, the angel said, no, don't kill him. I'm sure glad he wasn't hard of hearing, because he would have said, God would have said, Jacob, didn't you hear me calling you, boy? He said, well, I didn't hear you, Lord. He said, well, can't you raise him back from the dead, you know? But he heard him, and he didn't, you know, he probably told him that this is what God had instructed me to do and whatnot, and they both accepted it as the word of the Lord. Now, we know that revenge was made against Shechem, okay, because Dinah, his daughter, was raped, okay. Dinah, the daughter of Jacob and Leah, okay, went to visit the young woman in the living area, okay, and she was raped by, and then they made a covenant with one another. Now Jacob returns to Bethel. Then God said to Jacob, get ready and move to Bethel and settle there, build an altar there to God who appeared to you, and when you fled from your brother Esau. Okay, so Jacob is having all of this stuff going on and whatnot in his life, but now Esau has children as well. The account of the descendants of Esau, also known as Edom. Esau married 2 young women from Canaan, Adah, daughter of Elon the Hittite, and Oholibamah, the daughter of Anna, the granddaughter of Zibeah the Hivite. He also married his cousin Basemath, who was the daughter of Ishmael and the sister of Nebaioth. Adah gave birth to the son named Eliphaz for Esau. Basement gave birth to a son named Ruel. Halabah gave birth to the sons named Jehush, Jolan, and Korah, and all these sons were born of Esau in the land of Canaan. Okay. Now Joseph has dreams now. Remember, Joseph was born of Rachel, and Joseph and Benjamin are her biological sons. And Joseph is really happy that he finally has a biological son by his wife. And he treats his son with royalty, because you got to realize the other children are stepchildren. Even though they're my children, they're not my biological children, they're stepchildren. And I guess these boys really didn't understand that. You know, they figured that they were children nevertheless, but they had the maid's blood in them, or they had Leah's blood in them. And somehow they were conniving and deceitful, selfish and greedy. And while Joseph and Benjamin were treated with royalty, they were all treated with respect and love. But Joseph received special attention from his father. Okay, because he was his first biological born son. Okay, now Joseph has dreams. Okay, Joseph was gifted with dreams, just like Jacob was gifted with dreams. Remember, Jacob had dreams? He had seen the face of God and his life was spared. Okay, so Jacob settled again in the land of Canaan, where his father had lived as a foreigner. Okay, this is the account of Jacob's family. Jacob had dreams. He says his brothers responded. He says, listen to this dream. He said, we were out in the field tying up bundles of grain, and suddenly my bundle stood up, and your bundles all gathered around it and bowed low before mine. Okay, and his brothers replied, so you think that you will be our king, do you? Do you actually think you will reign over us? And they hated him all the more because of his dreams and the way he talked about them. You know, he says, oh, here comes the dreamer. You know, they hated him. They didn't understand. They didn't have the same vision that Joseph had. So they plotted and planned to get rid of Joseph, and they was going to kill him, but then Reuben said, why not just sell him into slavery? Reuben was secretly planning on returning Joseph back to his father. But they threw him into Sisera, and by the time Reuben came back, he was already sold into slavery. They took his jacket and they dipped in blood and they showed it to their father, and they lied to his father and said that he was eaten up and his body was torn up by a wild animal. And this pained Jacob tremendously, and he was in agony for years. He mourned his son for years. Now Joseph was sold into slavery, okay? When Joseph's brothers saw him coming, they recognized him at a distance. As he approached, they made plans to kill him. Here comes the dreamer, they said, come on, let's kill him and throw him into the cisterns. We can tell his father a wild animal has eaten him. Then we'll see what becomes of his dreams. And don't you know, you may be able to kill the dreamer, but you can't kill the dream, okay? We all know that by the life of Martin Luther King and all those other activists and abolitionists and whatnot who fought so that we could live. You know, Rosa Parks, you know, Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, you know, and a few historians that go back, Frederick Douglass, Sojourner Truth, Harriet Tubman, okay? I can name them, continue to name them, but you know what I'm talking about. Okay, so Joseph was sold into slavery. Now they sent the beautiful robe to the father with his message. Look at what we found. Doesn't the robe belong to your son? Okay, so now Joseph is sent to work in Potiphar's house. Okay, and his wife, Potiphar's wife, makes advances on Joseph. But Joseph refuses Potiphar's wife's advances. Okay, so Potiphar left everything he had in Joseph's care and Joseph in charge. He did not concern himself with anything else except the food he ate. Now Joseph was well built and handsome, and after a while his master's wife took notice of Joseph and said, come to bed with me. But he refused. With me in charge, he told her, my master does not concern himself with anything in the house. Everything he owns he has entrusted in my care. No one is greater in this house than I am. My master has withheld nothing from me except you, because you are his wife. How then could I do such a wicked thing and sin against God? And then she spoke to Joseph day after day, and he refused to go to bed with her and even be with her. Okay? And of course this infuriated her. She was mad, and she was determined to get him to sleep with her. And one day he ran from her, and it says one day he went into the house to attend to his duties, and none of the household servants were inside. She caught him by his cloak and said, come to bed with me. But he left the cloak in her hand and ran out of the house. When she saw that he had left the cloak in her hand, he ran out of the house. She called her household servants. Look, she said, the Hebrew said he has brought to us to make sport of us. He came here to sleep with me, but I screamed. When he heard me scream for help, he left the cloak beside me and ran out of the house. Now, anybody know that wouldn't make any sense? If I'm going to try to do something wrong, why would I leave any evidence of you to pin against me? Duh. Okay, we're talking about my book, Joseph from the Pit to the Palace, available on highwaytoheavenchurch.org, lulu.com, amazon.com, barnesandnoble.com. Just type my name, Sylvia Black, or the title of the book, and or the title of the book, and you will be able to find it. Now, Joseph was put back in prison again, because, you know, Potiphar's wife wanted him dead. You know, how many of y'all know that sometimes when you don't want to succumb to the enemy's desires, they want to get rid of you, baby. The enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy. And the enemy says, hey, you don't want to give in to my desires? You don't want to do what I want you to do? How dare you? Do you know who I am? Who do you think you are? This is the thoughts of the enemy. Okay, but I got news for you, my brothers and sisters. We know that the devil is in hell suffering. That's right, the devil created hell, but he's also in hell suffering along with all the other people that he put down in there. So he has no control over hell. Okay, all the hell that he created. And so that's the same thing for the people on earth. They serve the devil, but we know that the devil is a liar. So the things that the devil promises his servants are all a lie. So that's why the devil's servants, the enemy, the wicked ones, the beasts of the field, they have to come after us, the righteous ones, to try to fulfill their desires. Because first of all, they can't understand. They're trying to pull us into their wicked web of deceit, to try to make us succumb and do what they want us to do. So that now we will serve the devil as well. And then that will be a victory for them, because they will say, hey, now I got you to serve the devil. I got you to come, you know, to do what I'm doing now. Here, you thought you was all righteous and whatnot, but now you doing what I'm doing, so you ain't no better than me. But they feel satisfaction now because they got something off, they was able to get something from you. You know, so they may be satisfied for a moment, just for a moment. But a child of God has eternal satisfaction, has good success. If you notice, that's why a lot of us, we have joy in our heart. You know, we have a spring in our step and a smile on our face, and we're happy and joyful mostly all the day. And that's what I'm going to talk about next week. But they can't understand that. Where do we get this real joy from? And if they just look back at their lives just a little while and realize that you serve the devil, baby, that's why you're not happy. Because there's no God that lives inside of you, and the only way that you're going to be truly happy is if you serve God. And that's the only way that you're going to have true happiness and good success, is if you serve the Lord thy God. If you are true and trust in Him all the days of your life. And my name is Sylvia Black, and I'm talking about my book, Joseph from the Pit to the Palace, and the subtitle is The Blessings of Obedience. Now, while Joseph is in prison, he interprets two dreams which both come true. Okay? And guess what? Pharaoh's in jail. Potiphar is in jail with him. Okay? So he says, I didn't understand. Now he understood, because his wife probably tried it with somebody else, and he might have caught her in the act. Okay? So now Pharaoh has these nightmares night after night, trying to figure out, why am I being plagued with these dreams? So, 2 full years later, Pharaoh dreamed that he was standing in the bank of a Nile river. In his dream, saw 7 fat, healthy cows come out of the river and began grazing in the marsh grass. Then he saw 7 more cows come up from behind them in the Nile, but these were scrawny and thin. These cows stood behind them, and fat cows of the riverbank. These were scrawny, thin cows, ate the 7 healthy cows. At this point in the dream, Pharaoh woke up. And he was confused. He was telling everybody, get me somebody who can interpret these dreams. So therefore Pharaoh should find an intelligent and wise man and put him in charge of the entire land of Egypt. So that's what happened. Pharaoh finally remembered Joseph after he completely forgot about him, and went and got him. He says, I know somebody who can interpret dreams. And he interpreted the dreams for Pharaoh, and Pharaoh put him in the entire land of Egypt. Now, my brothers and sisters, don't think that just because you're obedient to the word of God that everything's going to go peaches and cream, because that's not the way it's going to go down. All hell, excuse me, all hell is going to break loose, and it may even appear as if you are heading for a downfall. Okay, in the natural, you know, with other people's eyes, in the natural eye, it may look like you're headed for your own demise. But God is a setback for a setup, okay, for a better blessing. Because sometimes, you know, God is going to protect His people. He's going to look out for His people. You know, you may look like you're going down, but you are not going down, because you are still surviving and you're looking better than ever. But God is working in the natural to make it look like you are going down, also to test you, to test us, to tempt us, to, you know, to see whether we're going to serve him or not throughout our dilemma. And through it all, you know, who are you going to trust? Who are you going to, you know, so can you praise him in the midst of your adversity? Can you praise him when you lost your job? Can you praise him when you got a foreclosure notice in the mail? Huh? Can you still praise him, my brothers and sisters? Are you still willing to determine to interpret dreams at that point? To be used by God at some point or another? So now we know that Joseph has made ruler over Egypt. Okay, and that was true because every dream that Joseph had interpreted, it came true. Now we know that there was a famine in the land, Pharaoh. Now Joseph was number one under Pharaoh. Pharaoh was the only greater than Joseph. Okay, and Joseph was interpreting dreams, and he came out accurate, and they stored up the grain for the 7 years of plenty, and then there was a 7-year famine, and they all still had plenty to eat. Okay, and then but everybody else around them didn't have plenty to eat, so they all came to Joseph, you know, for food. There was, you know, bartering, you know, making a bargain. Yeah, I'll give you this in exchange for that, because they had no way of growing food or getting food because they had no money. They had maybe cattle. They may have had possessions, you know, like in today you may have a house or a car, but you have no cash actually. So now you got to take your car, your house, and you got to sell it, or you got to actually say, here, take my car and you give me food. So that's the way it was back then. They had items and possessions and that they, you know, used to trade and barter with. Okay, and then one day Joseph's brothers come along and whatnot and show them what happened. They bowed down to Joseph, just as Joseph had interpreted in his dreams. They didn't even recognize his brother. They didn't recognize him as his brother, and when they couldn't understand, he had on a thing on his head and whatnot, and they didn't recognize him. So Joseph put him through a little few changes and whatnot, and then next thing you know, they all sat down and they ate together, and then eventually Joseph revealed himself to him as, I'm your brother. And they say, you still love us after what we did to you? See, their guilt now was getting the best of them. So they went home, got the family and all the wives and everything, and came back. And Jacob, his father, was actually able to see Joseph again, and he was happy and whatnot. And they said, we'll never do that again after the grief that we saw that our father had suffered over the years. And actually their mother, I believe, she probably died in grief as well, suffering because she knew that her husband was suffering. And so now they're living happily ever after. Joseph tells Potiphar that, you know, hey, my family's here, you know. So he's happy for his family and everything and whatnot. And they all have plenty to eat and they live happy, healthy lives. And then down the road, Joseph's father Jacob dies. Now the brothers' guilt is getting the best of them because they're wondering now. They said, oh, they had thought, see, they're thinking all kind of wickedness. Because ain't no way in the world somebody going to really think that you're going to be forgiven after the mess that you done done. You know, how can you really forgive me for what I did to you? This is what an average person is thinking. But we all know, if you know God, you know, then you know that God is a God of forgiveness. You know, but obviously their mind wasn't there. You know, they was thinking, you know, that they was living on borrowed time, in other words. And then when Jacob had died, their father died, they probably said, oh, he was just waiting for our father to die before he decided to kill us. He said, oh, he's going to probably kill us now that our father is dead. See, so nobody ain't got to do nothing to the enemy, honey, because their guilt is going to get the best of them. They're going to get eat up by their own thoughts, and their own deviousness is going to come back on them. Because you better believe there's blessings in obedience. All you got to do is stay obedient to the word of God, honey, and God will bless you. I know for a fact, baby. I know for a fact. Well, I want to thank you for joining me today for Real Estate, Religion, and You. My name is Sylvia Black, licensed real estate broker with affordable homes and apartments. And also, I'm licensed to preach and ordained as a minister. Please join me next Wednesday right here on Time Warner Public Access TV Channel 20 at 6:30 to 7 and Saturday from 12:30 to 1. And please visit my YouTube address at sblack3001 and get a copy